Welcome to Reseller Hosting, the basics of starting your own hosting company. Again, you're here with myself, Kevin Coop, and Mr. Jerry Humphrey.
Hi, everyone.
And now, of course, PowerPoint. There we go. So today, some of the reseller topics we're going to discuss include, number one, as we said just on the previous slide, how to start your own hosting company. Option number two, options, the different levels of reseller hosting that are available. And Jerry's going to also talk about some of the options that are available from different providers. There's more providers than just HostGator in order to get reseller hosting. Basic setup of your reseller hosting account. This is, of course, extremely important for those of you who are brand spanking new and don't yet have a reseller account. It's good to get your account set up correctly right from the very beginning. Creating hosting packages, what packages are and how to figure out and intelligently which direction you want to go in creating packages for yourself. There is no exact, mathematical equation that says you must, create your packages, this specific way. But we're going to give you some intelligence in regards to, how to make those determinations for yourself. Also, the creation or creating accounts. This is basically just adding new accounts or new clients into your reseller hosting as you acquire them. Also, we're going to talk about WHM, which stands for Web Host Manager, and its management. Most of you are probably familiar with cPanel, logging into your cPanel and selecting certain options and controlling or managing your hosting account via cPanel. Well, reseller hosting gets into a completely new area, and that's this new WHM panel, or this Web Host Manager, where you have all sorts of new feature sets and options that you need to understand and control. We're going to talk a little bit about billing options. There's typically like 2 of them that are built into most reseller accounts. Jerry's going to talk a little bit about billing options, and then by that, you have a real solid understanding of what reseller hosting is and just basically how to manage it, at least from a basic level. We are not going to obviously have the time to get into, extremely complex setups in this, webinar that's slated for 2 hours, but we will definitely cover all of the core. So hopefully you're ready, and with that, Jerry, I guess let's go.
What we're going to do here is we're going to start through and go through what just Kevin went over, and again, if you have questions, ask them as we're going through. We're talking about reseller hosting, and I'm going to mention briefly about different kinds of hosting and programs that fall under that umbrella but aren't exactly what we're going to be talking about. One of them is things like affiliate programs. For example, Yahoo sells web hosting, and you can resell their web hosting through an affiliate program where you get a percentage back. That's not the kind of web hosting reseller that we're going to go through, but just wanted to clarify that. Some other places also have affiliate programs like Namecheap. They offer web hosting and such, and you can sell it and get a percentage. GoDaddy is probably the one of the bigger ones that everybody knows, even though Namecheap's catching up to them. And they all sell web hosting, but you're not really reselling it. You're just offering it for an affiliate. Within these, and so that's basically an affiliate program. There's also companies like Wild West Domains, which is actually GoDaddy's a division of GoDaddy, and they have all these reseller things, but they're reselling domain names and, again, basically reselling as a type of an affiliate type program. So you're actually reselling their products, their services. You're not handling all the customers and such. What we're now within these, some of these companies like Namecheap have what they call reseller hosting, and that's actually what we're going to be getting into. And that's where you buy space from the companies, and you're actually going to resell it without their name directly involved. It's your company. You sell web hosting. You handle the clients. You're the frontline support. You have your own setup, and that's what we're really going to get into. So some of these other companies like Namecheap have reseller hosting, and places like HostGator, which we'll get into, offer regular hosting as well as reseller hosting. And we're actually going to show HostGator itself is what we're actually going to go into today, and they have the reseller plans. There are other companies, like my personal use, I use Liquid Web, which doesn't directly offer a reseller program, but their hosting packages that they have will let you set up reseller and do everything that I'm going to basically be showing you today. So it's just a little bit more robust type. So what you're doing is basically reselling packages to clients on a server, and they're going to deal with you. You're going to build the clients. You're going to handle the clients. You're the first line of support. So the one that we're going to concentrate on today for the demonstrations is a HostGator reseller account. But most of what we're going to see today will work on most reseller accounts across the board. So within a reseller account, the difference between this and like a shared account or a normal, regular account is that you have the ability to set up multiple accounts within the main account. Again, directly with the customer. They don't know that you're necessarily with HostGator. They're going to deal with XYZ hosting company, whatever you've named your company. HostGator provides access to different items such as the WHM that we just briefly talked about, and other features that we're going to step through. They offer the ability to do all the connections and set up domain name reselling and billing and the whole thing. So this is going to be a little different than your typical account, unless you already have a reseller account, which most of you do not. This is basically the superset of just having like a cPanel account. So what we're going to do is actually go in. We already have an account set up, which I believe is basically a Diamond account set up within HostGator itself, and we're going to log into that and show you some of the differences. First, I'm going to log into cPanel, and this is what most of you are probably familiar with. And your cPanel might vary, color, or changes, or layout, or differences, but this is typically what your customers would see. And this is a regular account. There are some differences because I am in a cPanel as a reseller, and we'll go into those in a little bit later. But the main part where you're going to actually be doing most of your work for your clients and such is in the WHM, or the Web Host Manager. And this looks basically like very similar to cPanel because it's actually from the same company. But this is where you're going to actually set up all your packages and your client's accounts and all the information about the server. I'm not sure if you guys can see if you can read what's down this column here, but these are all the different functions of the Web Host Manager. We will be getting into these and going over pretty much all of them as we go through the management. But right now we're going to skip ahead to 2 parts, because once I have those set up, we can then go back and go to the management. Because right now there's only one account set up on here, and we don't have a lot of what they call packages. So what we're going to do is skip directly to packages, or creating a package, and so we can actually add users and members. So right now there's a couple packages in here, but so let me just show you one of them by editing it. When you go to a web host, well, let me jump back to HostGator here, and you basically go to their web hosting. When they are offering things, they're offering, like here, they offer a hatchling plan, a baby plan, a business plan, and there's differences in features or functions that you get. And you might have, like the hatchling plan only lets you have one domain, where the baby plan here might have multiple domains, and you might get other features, other functions. So these are typically what you buy, what you're showing to end users. Do they get certain add-on or parts domains? Do they allow subdomains and such? And all these are the configurations, and these are 3 packages that HostGator has. And you can have one package, or you can have 100 packages. It depends on what you're offering to your customer. So within WHM, you set up these packages. And these packages contain how much disk space they get, how much in megabytes. So this is like 5,000, that's 5 gigabytes of disk space. How much bandwidth they get, 1 is not enough. We'll get back to that in a second. How many FTP accounts they can have, how many email accounts, how many email lists they can have, how many MySQL databases, if you're going to allow subdomains, how many, which is like the yourdomainname.com, that's a subdomain. How many part domains? This is when you have a domain that's just sitting there going to a particular page on your website. You're not really using it for anything. It's typically part domains, although you can. How many add-on domains? These are the domains that usually end up in subdirectories if you're going to allow the client to have them. And then maximum hourly email by domain relayed, and maximum percentage of failed or deferred messages. These ones, for some reason on HostGator, they put them there, but they don't let you set them. But this usually allows you to maintain that you're not going to let the people go out and spam or send hundreds or thousands of emails. This is actually not on everybody's, on all WHM panels. But basically here it's set to HostGator's limits, which I don't know what the maximum percentage failed are, but I know the maximum hourly is 500. But we'll get back to some of this in a minute. And then there's additional options you can have. Dedicated IP. Does each person get their own IP address, or do they have a shared IP address? Shell access is like a command line to the server. Do they let them actually access the server that way? Some companies do, some don't. Front page extensions is pretty much recommended to not offer. It used to be when people had front page, they could post directly to the website. It usually caused more problems than helps. CGI access, if you're on your regular account, you'll usually see a CGI bin section, and that's, do they allow you to put CGI scripts in there, like Perl scripts and such. And then we have the cPanel theme. Which theme will they get? And I'll show themes in a moment. And which feature lists, there's some different features that are listed, and then where the locale is. HostGator by default has, I think it's 13 different locales, so what would the user interface look like? And by default, we're going to use English. Not all companies offer this as a change. So this is the Web Dev Plus package. This could be called Baby or Hatchling or whatever. You would set these to have a predetermined package, so when we do set up an account, we can just grab a package and all of these features are automatically set for that. You can also, when we do set up an account, I'll show you how you can override individual features for a particular account. So if you have a client that needs more of one thing or another, you don't necessarily have to build a whole package up. What is the question that came up earlier is, how much do you allocate file space and bandwidth to a customer? And that really depends on what type of hosting they're doing, what do they need, and if you're dealing with let's say, a person that's just doing a basic WordPress site, they don't necessarily need a lot of disk and a lot of bandwidth unless they're getting a lot of traffic. If you're dealing with somebody who wants to do file sharing, which I personally don't like having my clients doing file sharing. Let's say you have somebody that has like big files that are downloaded. Maybe that you sold to a band and they have lots of downloads. In that case, you basically need to bump these up. I usually look at what is offered by the hosting company to that you have resources available for all your clients. And in the case of this particular setup, we have what was the diamond setting. So we have to work with, we have 200 gigabytes of disk space, and we have 1,400 gigabytes or 1.4 terabytes of bandwidth. So I don't like to overload with a lot of customers. Some hosting companies will jam 200 people into this space, and then they'll tell you that it's unlimited, like it says down here. You do have a finite amount of space and bandwidth to work with. Some people won't use all of it, some people will, but for me, I like to divide whatever I have by typically 20. I usually have 20 clients on a particular server, because your hosting can actually, you can end up having multiple hosting, multiple servers and such. You might find that your particular use, you might be able to handle 40. And so I would just typically take what you have offered, which is the 200 gigabytes, and divide it by, and in this case I'm going to divide by 20, which is, so I'm going to have 20 gigabytes roughly to work with everybody. And 1,400 is what, 700 gigabytes? No, not 700. 70 gigabytes of bandwidth for each. I think that's my right number. And
yeah, Jerry, you have, if you're doing that split by 20, obviously 200 in disk space divided by 20, it's actually 10 gigabytes in disk per, 10. And then 1,400 divided by 20 is going to be 70.
I was so worried about my division on the 1,400, I messed up on the other one. So, so what you could do is just by default, build your packages with, let's see, that's 70 gigabytes. That's right. So you could, by default, just put your packages like this, which is 10 megabytes and for disk quota, and 70. The problem is you're going to find that some people are going to want less and some people are going to want more. So if you're reselling, if you're actually going to be selling to the public, you might make this the largest package, and this would be like the top that you would offer in general, and then make smaller packages dividing that as needed. So you could have like the baby package that might only have 1/10 of this, might only have 7 gigabytes of transfer and 1 gig of disk space. So it's really subjective to how you're going to offer it. Are you going to offer, do your clients have particular needs, or are you going to offer it to general use? In theory, you can put in this any number you want. It all goes against your maximum. But if you were to put, 1 million, sorry, a little carry away with zeros. If you were to put this number here for disk quota, it will let you. The problem is that this one particular user can overrun your total disk quota for your reseller site. And even though everybody else hasn't reached their quota, he could use up all your quota. There's kind of a disconnect between this and what you have. So this is mainly to put a limit so somebody doesn't run away with your overall disk quota. It's really not a good idea to oversell even though a lot of resellers out there do, hoping that most people will not use their total allotted bandwidth. When you reach either the maximum disk quota or the maximum monthly bandwidth, a suspended page pops up on that particular account, which you can override as needed. And we'll get into the suspended page in a little bit later. So for my rule of thumb is typically 20. Yours might be different. That's if I'm just doing clients. If I'm reselling to users on a front end, like we'll show briefly a little bit later, then you might make multiple packages and allocate them as needed. And again, these are general packages. These are not, you can still override these for particular use. On this next section, the max section here, you'll see that some just have one and a checkbox. You'll see some that say 0, some that have unlimited. If it's 0, that means no accounts. It's not unlimited. It means that, like here, if I click this button, this particular package would have no email accounts. You can set a particular number and then through the billing system maybe charge extra if you want to give them more email accounts. Some people do that as options. Other people will have it just set to unlimited for things that don't matter much. Having additional email accounts typically isn't a problem unless they're like high volume. But again, all this email goes against the bandwidth and the disk quota. So I usually offer unlimited accounts to my clients directly. When I was doing reselling to end users, I would typically set this down, and then if the client had a particular need or whatever, I wouldn't charge them extra. I would just work with the client and edit it for them as needed. Most don't need a lot of FTP accounts because once you start having lots of FTP accounts, it typically means there's a lot of file sharing going on. So I usually set it to 1, and again, work with the client if they need more. Email lists are a similar thing. I usually, on my client, set it down to a low number by default and then edit it as needed so I have a better idea what they're doing. Databases, on the other hand, I usually leave unlimited because if they're adding things like WordPress and then maybe something like Digital Access Pass and then adding something else and something else, they might be adding multiple databases. And I don't really, for my purpose, it didn't really see a need to lock that down. But again, you can set it either to 0 for none or a particular number or set it for unlimited. But this is exactly how many databases. So when you do it, script installs like WordPress and such, you're going to see each one of these gets used up. Subdomains are pretty much the same thing. Subdomains are very popular now, especially with mobile ones doing like m.yourdomain.com. This is how many subdomains. Some places on like the low-end packages limit it and then charge extra for it as a way to get people to buy higher level packages. For my clients directly, I usually leave it unlimited, and if I'm selling higher end packages, I usually leave it unlimited. But this is something that you can add. These are like options that you could add. Park domains, I don't know why this particular package was set to 0 by default here. I usually leave it unlimited. This is how many domains they can park on a site. So if somebody's like domaining and has a whole bunch of domains they're not using but wanting to go somewhere, I usually leave this unlimited. Again, it takes away from any domains that are parked here, take away from this amount. I don't recommend using parked domains. I prefer setting up a new account for each domain for my particular purposes. Add-on domains, if I had my way, everyone would be 0. Add-on domains are the domains where you add on to the existing account and they usually make a subdirectory on your account and eat up the same resources as everything else, but are stuck within another domain. This is the way a lot of people have done their clients or multiple sites on their own, and it's much better to have separate domains in case you need to adjust things, move things, back up things, especially with clients. And it kind of isolates them if you basically set up new accounts for each domain as opposed to add-on domains. However, some people do want them, so I've gone, put a number in here typically, but you can either do a number or unlimited. I really suggest not using add-on domains unless you absolutely have to. Let's see, let me put this just on here. Dedicated IP is, with reseller accounts, they sometimes will give you 1 or 2 IP addresses. In the case of HostGator, I believe you get 5. And of course, I'm scrolling and you're not able to read this, but I don't see it listed here, but I believe we got 5 IP addresses for the site. Typically, it's shared as it's typically you get 1 or 2 IP addresses that you share for all your reseller accounts. You might want to have a client have a dedicated account if they're going to be using a SSL certificate where they need to have it dedicated to a particular IP address. So they can set up the SSL certificate, and that's their IP address. It stays to them, and it is what is used. For most clients that are not going to have an SSL, you don't necessarily want to dedicate one of your IP addresses. IP addresses, most places charge anywhere from $1 to $5 in most cases per month per IP address added. So it just depends on what your needs are. Someone asked, is it costly if you set up separate domains for each client? You're setting them up within your reseller account. These accounts are set up, and it's part of your reseller. It's not costing you more for each separate account that you set up, because in the case of most resellers, is you have unlimited number of accounts that you can have within your reseller account. Some are limited, but most are not. So my personal one I have all my personal sites on separate accounts, but they're not, that's how you get it set up. Shell access allows them to go in and actually run commands on the server, and this is typically not needed by most people. It's nice to have if you're techie and want to get in and do some things. But typically I would say leave this off unless you or your client know what they're doing. Front page extensions, I haven't had a client need that in 7-8 years. So front page is actually discontinued. It's not a great thing, so I just leave it off. It leaves access to the server in a different way. That's for a while that was the main way to hack a server. CGI access usually leave on. Most people might have at some point the need for CGI. I don't have any sites. No, I'm sorry. I have one site that uses CGI. I have about 80 sites. So I mean, it's kind of rare. It doesn't seem to hurt anything having this. Again, this is something that some people charge extra to have. And somebody asked regarding IP addresses, do they all have to have their own dedicated IP address? No. They can share the IP addresses unless they're going to use an SSL certificate. Then they need their own IP address for that site, for that certificate. So in this case, you don't have to have dedicated IP. In the case of this account, it'll automatically distribute across the IP addresses that are assigned to the account. The cPanel theme is, there are different themes, and we'll show the themes in a while. Almost all use X3 by default, and that's the one that we showed in here, which is the typical bluish green, white, silvery look, and that's X3. So most of the stuff that you're just going to typically do the same, and then we're going to hit Save Changes. We're actually not adding a new one. We're just reselling, and just resaving setting. So now we have this new Koopster Web Dev. You can do the same thing with adding. It's the same interface. Just put a name in it and set everything up. You also have the ability to delete packages. And Feature Manager there are some additional scripts that can be added for cPanel add-ons. It's not really recommended to set up. This is kind of being pushed aside by new features and such. It's kind of like Fantastico, but not. So that's what Feature Manager. So that's packages. Right now we have let me say delete so we see them. We have 2 packages. I'll just show you the other package. So this is like an unlimited package with half a gig, 5 gigs of bandwidth, unlimited everything, CGI access. Looks very similar to what the other package had. So we have 2 packages to choose from. So does anyone have any questions about packages? Okay, it doesn't seem to be right now, but we'll get back to that. All right, so we have 2 packages set up. This is what has to happen before we set up an account. And there's a whole bunch of things we should do before we even get to this point, but I wanted to have an account and package set up so we can show how all of the things work. So this is kind of why I said we're jumping around a little bit. So let me go back to the home. This is when you typically log in, there's a handful of icons, and these match up with the sections that are on the sidebar. Server configuration, support, locales, cluster remote access, server status, account information, account functions, and multi-account functions. These are the ones that we're going to be using the most. Front page extensions, I'm not going to use this. Themes I'll show you. You probably won't use this a lot. Packages we just went through. DNS functions, dynamic name server, domain name server. Email functions, cPanel functions, and then SSL and plugins. Again, these are all the sections that are, let me just collapse them all. These are all the sections that are down the side just in icon format. So what we're going to do now is we have a package so we can now set up, create a new account. We're going to create a new account so that we can do these other things that are on the management system. This is the new account screen, and I will warn you, they look a little different on every reseller account that I've used, even in WHM, just different. This whole section here is like somewhat new, and it doesn't show up everywhere. But what this is showing you on the side here is these are your account limits. This is what the total availability is for your account. So we can see that we have disk space. This is how much is allocated, and this is how much we have available. Again, allocated and available. So we have very little allocated right now, and this is actually running WHM is actually running a live website in addition to the ones that we're going to set up right now. Below is showing packages that are set up. There are an example package. Let me see if I can scroll up so you can see this. When you hover over it, it shows you what these settings are. There's a couple example packages just to get you an idea for setting up and playing with it. And this is showing certain bandwidth and IP addresses or not. And this is the one we just set up. And it shows the bandwidth, and the quota is disk quota at the bottom. The little 8 turned on its side means unlimited, and it's kind of, you can't like go point to it. And then on this side it shows what is the main limiting factor in these. The main limiting factor it feels is, and this one is disk space. It feels that disk space is your main limiting. The one in this one feels that bandwidth is limited, so it's kind of low. And this is giving you a rough idea what advantages or disadvantages there are for the particular one. So if you had somebody that was really wanted bandwidth, this would be kind of the package to go with. And if they wanted disk, this might be more of, if they wanted more bandwidth, this one, or disk, it's the opposite of what you want, sorry. But what we set up here, and we're going to set up a new account, and this I'm going to give you a brief thing. So we're going to be setting up a fake account because I don't have a domain. We already have a domain set on this account. So, but you would put the domain name here. So if you wanted a particular domain name, you type in the full domain. It'll automatically create a username, and it's typically the first 8 characters of the domain name. When we've gone through and shown on other times when people have their cPanel name, that's what the cPanel name is. It's this right here. So typically I recommend not doing what it suggests, because anyone can guess, okay, the main domain name is Counter Hosting in this particular case, and Counter H is the first. So they already know your username right away. It's not that it's not hard to figure out a username on a lot of sites. It's just that you don't want to give it away. You want them to actually have to figure it out if someone wants to try to do it. So I usually put some sort of 7-character name here that might be, sorry. So that might be close. So it's still readable by humans, as opposed to doing, kind of, I try to do something that makes some sense, but is not easily guessed. So somebody doesn't just log in and start, just trying it. So there's going to be Counter Host 1. Password. I can't stress how important a really tough password is here. You don't want to put password here. You don't want to put a dictionary word. This gives people to the whole website. If you're worried about somebody going in with and hacking your WordPress site or whatever site, this is the keys to the kingdom. So it doesn't matter how well your WordPress site is if your password here is weak. You can go into your client can go into their cPanel and typically have the ability to change. I'm sorry, I want to collapse the one I needed. There's a change password for them to change their password, but I still recommend starting off tough and changing it often, but keeping it a solid one. The password generator in cPanel or in WHM is pretty good. Sometimes it gets some characters that are hard to tell apart. One of them is this bracket that hopefully you can see. It's a bracket, but some people think it's an L or an I or a J. There are abilities to change it a little bit. I just keep generating a password until I see something that looks pretty solid. I only like having a letter at the beginning and a letter or number at the end. So like this one I don't like because it's got a question mark at the end. This one I don't like because it's got zeros, or are they O's? That kind of thing. So this one and that one's got like an I. So I mean, you can sit here all day and do it, but I try to get something that's fairly tough and then to use that. Again, write these down somewhere. So because it just asks you to do that. So we're going to use that password. So you have a very strong password. Email here is the email address for the clients for this particular domain. Do not use a email address that's inside that domain. For example, right now we're using Counter Hosting as the domain. So you don't put like webmaster@counterhosting.com. If something happens to Counter Hosting or whatever, you're not going to be able to write to them. So you should use an email that's outside of that domain, maybe a Gmail, some sort of contact email that's outside of the domain or any of the domains that you're hosting, so you can contact them. So let's see. So you set that up. You now can choose the package. We have the package that we set, the WebDev Plus. And so now this particular account has that packaging set. You can override that at the time of setting up the account by clicking this button, and then it shows this information that you in a little different format than what was on the other screen, but this is basically all the same information. And if you do change it, let's say that you want to give them a little bit more bandwidth, you can click Save Settings as a Package and give it a new package name. So you can create new packages on the fly. For this particular use, we're going to just use the WebDev Plus package we've made. Again, you can set the panels, and we'll show the panel themes, and we'll show that in a minute. And again, on the location. The rest of this, almost always, is left alone. However, there is something new here that just started showing up in WHM that might be a good idea to check. First one here is enable DKIM on this account, and it would be fun to show by a show of hands if anyone actually knows what DKIM stands for. And fortunately, they're nice enough to when you hover over it, it tells you domain keys identified mail. And I know that makes perfect sense to all of you, so we really don't need to go into discussing that, right? Yeah, exactly. No one knows what it is, so much that there is a huge Wikipedia article all about this. But the overview is, let's see, it basically, the need for this, let's see if I can highlight this, you might be able to read it or not. The need for this is a validated identification because spam often has forged addresses and content. What domain keys identified mail is a way for your domain to say this particular piece of email came from your domain. That's it in a non-technical nutshell. If you wish to find out more about it, that Wikipedia article goes into great detail. What it does is it's saying this domain is basically signing this particular piece of email as it goes out. This, in conjunction with another feature, is how you see in Gmail when eBay and PayPal send out emails that they're official, they'll have a little key or a little icon next to them. And it's basically saying that, yes, that email came from this server. This next one, by default, in the settings for the reseller is set, and that's enable SPF on this account. And that does not have, it's not the sunscreen protection factor. What SPF is the sender policy framework, and I bet nobody knows what that is. So, and this is a little bit easier at the beginning. Sender Policy Framework is an email validation system designed to prevent email spam by detecting email spoofing by verifying IP addresses. So this does a similar thing in that it goes back and says, did this email really get sent from this, this domain, and is it correct? And SPF is a good thing to have. Because it basically cuts down on people sending email under your domain unless they have the proper credentials to do so. Does that mean that no one will ever spam? No. It just means that it helps cut down a lot of the things. It's a little bit easier to set up now. Before you had to put this zone template stuff into the DNS and do more to it. So if you have these features, I recommend having them checked. The next one is they use the name servers specified at the domains registrar, ignoring the locally specified name servers. Name servers is basically how when you type in a domain name, it goes out to basically yellow pages or white pages and gets a number to tell it which server IP address on the whole internet to go to. By default, you'll have a couple or more name servers included with your hosting setup. This particular one has 2, and these are used when we set up new domains. It uses these domain name servers. In some cases, you'll have clients that might have their domain names hosted at either the registrar or somewhere else. So you want it to go out and look at the domain registrar to figure out where those are hosted. This will typically not be checked. And if you're going to check it, you typically know more about what's going on here. What we want it to be is unchecked, so it will use a domain name server that's on this particular hosting setup, which happens to be these two. So we're going to leave that unchecked. You can have private domain servers that have, instead of like this one saying website welcome, that could actually be to your particular domain hosting company. So, it would be XYZ hosting, name server.xyz hosting. That depends on the setup from your reseller. By default, HostGator does not do that, but I believe they have that as an option. Liquid Web, on the other hand, goes either way. They actually ask you during setup if you want private name servers or not. So you can set those up. So they wouldn't know that it's coming from website welcome, which happens to be HostGator's name servers. But again, this is typically left unchecked. Mail routing settings, almost always it should go to local mail exchanger. If you click automatically detect configuration and hits create, it almost always goes to local mail exchanger. So that's why I typically leave it there. There are three types of mail exchangers, and this is basically kind of like the post office for your mail. It's telling where your mail should go from your for your domain. If you use a local mail exchanger, it uses your domain to determine where the mail is sent. It's sent basically to your mail server. If you're using somebody else's mail, like a mail service, somebody that handles all your email, you might set up backup mail exchanger, which means that this it will try to go out to find another mail server, and if that mail server doesn't exist or is failing, the mail will come here as a backup. This is typically rarely used unless you have major amounts of mail and you know how to configure the different mail servers. Remote mail exchange is basically saying if nobody is getting the mail, it will not accept it. If there's no exchange that point to this particular IP address, then it will go through the list on the domain of all the mail servers and try to find the lowest one. Some of these are used in conjunction with setting up mail, such as like having Gmail handle it with the Google for Business method. So if your mail at at yourdomain.com is actually being hosted on Gmail, you would change some of these things. However, again, it's local mail exchanger is the typical one to do. Hit create, and it should come out, and if everything goes okay, this is a test, but we don't have, let's see, I'm just looking. Hey, Murphy's not on today. So we're doing okay. So this is basically an output saying what was set up and did everything go okay. Almost always this is just fine and you don't need to ignore it. The part that you're concerned about is this. Specifically, well, there. This is the part that you're concerned about. This is the new account information. A version of it is mailed to whoever's contact email you set up. And again, you could have had multiples. I forgot to mention that with commas. And they will get this information, except the password will be hidden. It's not sent out in the email, but it is here. So what I usually do is when I get one of these for a news client, I just grab this information as well and store it off in their in a file that I have for them. Right now I'm using Notepad. I actually use put it in LastPass myself. So this is showing the domain. This is their IP address, and no, the N here means it's not dedicated to them. It's shared across multiple clients. Do they have the CGI? This is their username to log in. What cPanel, where the root is, which is, home is typically it. And their settings, their name server settings, so if they have to change it on their domain name, who it's going to, the package, and so on. The main things that are important here are four of these five, the first two and the second two. This is who it is, IP, domain, such, and then these two, they need to make sure that their name server is set up to point to yours so it knows where to find it. So basically that's all it is to setting up an account for a new client manually. You fill in a couple blanks, you hit it, and it's gone. So now they're actually on the server. Until they actually set up the domain name on their the domain name servers on their registration account for their domain name, they will not see the site. So they could see all sorts of different things depending on where it's pointed to. Once it's pointed to these, then it would be able to what they call resolve to this. Some panels will set up a temporary URL that they can use. And sometimes that is something as simple as the main server name with slash and then a tilde, the little squiggly line that's up way up in the corner of your keyboard, and then like CTR host 1. I do not believe that that is set up for HostGator. That they do not set up a temporary domain, so you have to wait until the domain propagates to actually access it. Since this is not really set up anywhere here, it's set up elsewhere, you won't actually see this run. But we now have an account in addition to other accounts that are there. So when we list accounts, you will see all the accounts that are on the server. If you open it up, you have the ability to go in and change your password. Now remember, when you change it, it gets rid of the old one. So if the customer goes, I can't remember my password, you can go in and actually change it. You can also change the contact email. So if this person moved on or whatever, you can go on and change that as needed. Sync MySQL password with account password syncs the password used by the cPanel and such. It doesn't sync passwords used by like applications such as WordPress and such. So that's what that is. So you just type in a valid password, hit change, and it would update. You also have some other buttons here that are not on everybody's WHM. One of them is change quota, so you can go in and you see how much space they're using for disk space, and you can go in and adjust that accordingly. So if one of your clients is getting really close on disk space, for example, or wants more, you can change it. Or if you made a mistake and you gave them way too much, you can go in and change it, and then just click Save. The other one is Change Plan, which allows you to choose a different package. They're calling it a plan here, but it actually is Change Package. And Modify Account allows you to go in and change the individual items in there without actually just choosing a new package. So that would be physically editing. So if you get somebody that needs more FTP accounts, for example, you can go in and change FTP accounts. Do make sure that you click Save, because it does not automatically save when you change things. You'll see things like this where it'll come up if you change it to something that's not equivalent to a new package, I mean equivalent to an existing package, like because we just changed one. You can either create a new package, you can update the existing package to the new value, which then means everybody that has that package automatically gets those new features. So for example, if you're finding that your clients are not using, would like more bandwidth across the board and you didn't give them enough in a package, you could say like everybody in WebDev Plus now gets more bandwidth. You can set the account to have no package, which would be by itself, or you can so that it would be a custom setting just for this particular account, or you can keep the account on the old package with the change, which isn't recommended because it gets can get out of sync. We're going to just update the package with these new values just so you can see. Usually you might or might not be able to see this depending on how fast your screen updated, but it put a little bar there why it works, and then down the bottom is a succeed button that comes up. Wait for that before doing anything. I found it should be able to be, as soon as that goes away, you should be able to change, but always wait for succeed to finish. So that is basically setting up an account. The customer would have the information that they can now use to set up their FTP to log into their account and be up and running. And so are there any questions about setting up a package or setting up an account? Somebody asked, can we see how HG's packages are defined? You cannot see HostGator's packages themselves. They're only available to them. However, you can get a rough idea by going to their website and viewing, doing like a package compare, and you can see that. The other one is, can alerts be set up to notify if you're getting close to limits? And we're going to talk a little bit about that and regarding suspending and unsuspending accounts and such and quota. Okay. Any other questions so far? All right. So let's see here. So we set up an account. And I've done this now, so we actually have an account that I can do things with, because I don't want to do things with the web dev course account. Normally, there's these other things we're going to do now that you would do when you originally set up your hosting account. But once you've got it set up, those are the two main things: packages and clients. So and none of this stuff is specific. You can have the contact email on multiple accounts. You can't have usernames that are different, so that are the same. So I have that counter hosting here. It's got this username. I can't have webhosting.com and still use the same username. Each account has its own username, so they log in for their particular domains. So let's go through WHM, which is what you're going to do when you first time you log in. HostGator is going to send you a big long email that has information about your new account, your account info from HostGator. And what it will tell you is what reseller plan you have, the URL for your control panel, your main domain, your username, your password for your control panel, the main IP address set up for your site, and the name servers, so that you can set up your domain to point to here. So when somebody goes to your domain, they come to the server. There are some more information, and they also they have additional video tutorials about different things, but we're pretty much going over over everything that's in here. Down the side is a whole bunch of things which, again, relate to these icons. The first one is server configuration, basic cPanel and WHM setup. You would think that when you click this button, you're going to see all sorts of great things. You see how to set up your name servers. This is, if you're going to use your own name servers, this is where you would set them up. You'd have to have HostGator already set them up, but they would go in here. So instead of saying website welcome whenever you generate a new account, you would have ns1 yourdomain.com and ns2, whatever was set up properly. In HostGator, you can just use their existing domain, so you don't need to do anything. Yeah, some hosts have more here to set up, some don't. So this is HostGator's. For the most part, you can ignore this particular page. The next one is support. Configure customer contact. By default, it comes up with this big long page that I'll scroll through in just a minute, which is for the different support departments and such. This is used in cPanel when somebody tries to contact you, and I just forgot where. Oh, contact to the bottom of the screen, yeah. Contact, when they try to contact you, way down here at the bottom of the screen. And since there's nothing really set up, it comes up with this this basic one, and you're supposed to customer put their name, email, and so on. What you can do is go in and put the different departments, URLs where a form can be or a link, their email addresses to receive it, and be different for each of these. You can have, or you can have it go directly to just a URL for automatically to go there, such as if you have a support system, support help desk or something. You can have it go to directly to an email address that you set up. This is typically done most of the time. And then in the subject itself, you can have it show the browser, the customer's domain name, the server's host name, their IP address, and their username. So you can have this information if it's helpful to you so that you're not constantly asking for it. And then you would just put your support email address here. Pipe to a program. Now, some people get it and some people will just like, what? This is saying that when they click a button, it's going to go through a program and send some information to when it submits. This is used if you have like a help desk ticket system that can handle processing the form itself. Or you can disable it completely and then nothing will happen. You have the ability to edit the pages, and there is a basic editor, and it will show you this marvelous editor that doesn't do much, and you could actually put a form in. There are some information about what they call cPanel tags. It's like include files and such. So if you wanted to create your own branded pages, you can do that here. So this is the customer contact. Typically, I would set up email, put the support email address, and check all this information. This information can be handy. Sometimes you won't use it at all, but it's better to have it than having to ask for it all the time. So let's see. Now we go to locales. Since you're around the world, it's possible that your particular base might be non-English. By default, most of them set up to English. The HostGator has access to multiple locales: Arabic, German, Spanish, Iberian Spanish, French, Hindi, Dutch, Polish, Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, Romanian, Russian, Turkish, and Chinese. I don't recommend playing around in here unless you know the language that you're switching to, because if you switch to a language you don't know, it's hard to figure out what buttons to click to get you back to where you are. These are showing the available locales. What this first line means provider is these are all provided by cPanel directly. This one's saying a third party. There's 3 people. It's party, third party. Provided the Turkish one. And then this is what theme it's available for, because not necessarily all themes have all the changes. We're going to stay with English because that is my primary language, so we're not going to touch any of this. Cluster remote access. This is not something that you should be showing everybody. Hi everyone, everybody watching? Yeah, you don't want to be giving this away. This gives programmable access to the website so that third-party scripts, such as a few that we'll go over a little bit, like WHMCS, a billing site, can actually set up and administrate and add and remove and bill customers. So this is like the special key to the kingdom also. This is very bad for people to have, so I will, not everybody's copied it down. So if you think somebody got this or you accidentally used it wrong or whatever, hit generate new key, it changes this key, and all the links that use the old key no longer work. If you're not going to be using remote billing or some other features, you typically won't have anything to do with this. But if you do, generate a new key. Server status. This is server information, and yours might be and possibly will be different. This talks about the processors that are in the server, what brand they are, what type they are, their speed, how much cache they have, nerdy stuff. Down below here is more important things like how much memory is available, what's going on with the physical disks, and overall memory and disk usage. In typical use, you're not going to need this. This is mainly for higher level support issues. The one that you kind of want to know is server status, which is the next one. These should pretty much be green all the time. They might blink red, they might blink yellow, but green is good. And this is telling you have access to the cPanel log file and service, and FTP is working, things are working, the server's not overloaded, memory's not used too high, swap is being swapped, swap memory, and your disks are doing well and are not really high percentages. If you see red or a bunch of red here, there might be some problems. You might talk to your reseller hosting provider. If there's issues, you can check this. But that's server status. I check this every once in a while when something might be going on, just to make sure it's not something that's like kind of known. Let's see here. The next one is account information, account functions, and multi-functions. We'll get back to those in a minute. Install front page extensions. This is where you can go and tell which account you want to install it on. You can install front page mail extensions, and you can uninstall. My favorite thing. My suggestion is do not install front page extensions and ignore this area. Themes. This is where we've been talking about themes all along, and this is now the WHM theme. This is the theme for the WHM page, not cPanel. There's only one installed, and there usually is only one installed, and that's this beautiful blue, green, aqua, white look. So that's the one for there. The one that's coming up a lot, which I'm going to slide down here, skipping packages. We'll get back. We already went through that basically. DNS functions, email. Down here to cPanel there's the ability for branding, and that's what theme that you want to have show up for a particular install, and you can edit them and make them look different. That's this basic look. So in here, let's see. I thought it was RVSkin Manager, I think it's. No, that wasn't it. Really? Okay, so here's the branding editor. This allows you to go in and edit the different themes. So you could put your own company logos at the top. You could change colors. You can edit the style. This one says root. This is the normal looking one that a lot of people have seen. There's other ones, black ice, blue, crimson, clocks. There's a mobile one, which is basically their idea of mobile is stripping everything out so that it's really basic. And yours will vary. You might have a couple themes here. You might have a lot more. The main theme, sorry, I'm scrolling so fast. The main theme is basically based off of X. You can apply this to all the account, to just your account that you're on, or to all the accounts that are in the reseller. You can set it for a default for the new accounts, or you can go in and edit the style. This allows you to edit logos, icons, the header, the footer, the user interface, and some additional features. So if you really want to get into branding. If it's just your clients and you're handling pretty much everything, I don't really see an advantage of going in and changing all this. If you have paid clients, most of them are used to seeing this anyways. They don't really necessarily want, have to see your name, hosting company up here. It's a nice touch, but it's not necessarily required. But this is the overall branding. You can limit, in this particular one, they have access to all the different themes, but you can limit it so that they do not have the ability to switch. My suggestion, unless there's a real reason to do it, is to not let them switch and put them with one theme and one theme only. That way you're not having to go back and forth trying to tell them where a button is or where a particular feature is. And this one is the most popular, the X3. Let's see here. Well, we're here. Changelog just tells you what's changed in cPanel as it updates. There's different fixes and changes. And shopping cart reset, I'll skip one. It basically resets some shopping cart installs through cPanel. This is rarely used because most people don't install through the cPanel shopping carts. Modify cPanel and WHM News. When you go into cPanel, you'll see these beautiful notices up here, and you see that there are no notices. You can go in here, and this is displayed to all your customer cPanels. You can say, welcome to XYZ hosting, or you can put things like, we're going to be offline for 24 hours due to, storm or something. And then when they come back into this section, they will see the updated notices. The problem is most people really miss this. They don't really see this, but you can put additional information there. And that's the cPanel WHM News. So that's the cPanel section. Now let's jump back up to account information. We saw the list accounts already, and this is basically shows all your accounts. You can click the cPanel logo, and it will log you in as if you were that particular client. And then it will give you this nice big warning up here. Let's just get rid of this right now. You're logged in with a reseller or root password, which means that you have access to pretty much everything, but you don't have access to do just anything. But this sometimes is good to go in and if you got to look up something in a particular client's account, but I would recommend you have a really good reason to do so. The issue becomes is when you are logged in, let's see, I thought that wouldn't. When you're logged in, certain features will not work, and unfortunately it's not telling me which ones right now because I think we're all set up. The way I'm set up, I don't have features blocked, but some features will not work unless you're actually logged in as the account. When you're logged in as the reseller account, you have the switch account function. Even if a customer has multiple accounts, they will not see this. Only the main reseller account is. And that means you can jump back and forth between the accounts on the server. So that's kind of nice to have here. Let's see here. So you can contact, send an email to people and such to this point. If you're having a lot of traffic and just wondering where it's going from, sometimes listing park domains might give you an idea. And if you see somebody's got, Super Bowl, 43 or something as a domain that might be getting a ton of traffic, then you might find them here. It's kind of nice to know what your users are doing if they're parking domains. For subdomains, you can click here and you can see that we actually have a subdomain set up on a particular account, because I'm going to show you that in a moment. If you have accounts that have been suspended for various reasons, they'll show up here. This is typically when you're suspending somebody maybe for spam or doing something and you've tried to reach them and you're not getting any word back. You suspend their account and then you can talk to them and unsuspend it later. Now slip over that one for a second. I'm going to go to show accounts over quota. This would show all the accounts that are using too much disk space, and you could either go in and adjust them as needed, or you can ban them or write to them and say, hey, look, you really need more disk space. And this is the same thing with bandwidth. This will typically show in gigabytes. You can switch it over to megabytes. So these numbers might, match a little more. There's a little plus button hiding here, which will show subdomains that there were and possibly things that were used. It'll show existing subdomains and how they're using all of this and the percentage. When it gets into be yellow, it will be that they're reaching about 70%. Red's about 85%. When they hit the full amount, they do get a blocked page that shows up. There is also a warning sent to the technical contact and to the user contact that they've been reached their bandwidth limitation or their quota limitation. Search accounts will let you go in and search either by domain, by username, by the reseller owner name, by which package they're using, or who's on a particular IP address. When you only have a few accounts, you're not going to necessarily use this, but this can be helpful if you do have a lot of accounts and you want to find different things. It then shows pretty much the same pages listing the accounts, but things that reach this particular criteria. So we'll show all the ones using a particular package, which we didn't put the name in, but so these people are all using the particular package that starts with that. So you can go in and check. Or if somebody complains that a particular IP address is causing a lot of problems, you can go in and find everybody that's on that IP address, for example. So that's helpful for support purposes. Let's see here. Account functions. We've created a new account. Force password change. If you think something's been compromised, or there's a problem, or you just think it's time to change passwords, you can go in and click this, hit submit, and it will go off and send, it will change it so that the next time they come in, they're required to change their password. Limit bandwidth usage. This shows what the setting is at this point, and then click select either by domain or by user and click limit, and then you can change the bandwidth used. This is good if you get a client that's, let's say here, that's got 7 gigs or 7,000 megs, and they, for some reason, are slowly crept up at the end of the month, and they hit their limit, and there's only a day to go in the rest of the month. You might tweak this, and it will change the bandwidth limit. And just let them eat by for the rest of the month without making them have to upgrade to the next package or pay more for bandwidth. Or if you have somebody that wants to pay more for bandwidth, you can go in there and just change it right in here. What I usually do is if my client is close to bandwidth at the end of the month, I just bump them up, and then I go back in next month and reset it back to the normal level, unless it's like radically different. Modify an account works similar. This again shows all the package and contact email and stuff like that, so you can change it. Modify password, suspended account page. This is a page that's shown when, let's see if preview works. Preview sometimes works. This is the page that's shown when somebody, let's see, this one's, if your IP address has changed, there's a configuration, if it's been moved, they show this particular page. There's different pages for different ones. This is the default website template. There are ones for the accounts moved somewhere else, connection or firewall problem. The one you'll see the most is this one, which is the suspended page. It's that beautiful bar that probably some of you have seen, especially when busy sales days and things like that happen when they slam a site or whatever. You can go in, and this is standard HTML, some CSS, and let's get to that exact page, and you can go in and change it as needed. and then save that, or you can upload your own templates. So that's basically the suspended page. That's where you would change it and make it yours. I recommend changing this to have some sort of contact information or something, that just in case somebody gets it. The problem with that, on the other hand, is if the end user gets it and there's a contact information, they're going to write to you and say, I can't buy such and such because I see that contact information. The contact type stuff I would put there is basically saying contact the hosting provider, maybe have your, make it so that it's clear that if this is your page, please contact the billing support department as soon as possible at XYZ hosting, that kind of thing. So that's suspended pages. Let's see. This one lets you go in and change passwords on a site. It's just a different interface. You'll find a lot of these things have like 3 different ways to do the same thing. This is the same as changing your password as on list accounts. The see, quota modification looks similar. This is now hard disk space as opposed to bandwidth. This again is one of those things where if I have a client and it's like the 30th of the month and there's one more day in the month, I will tweak it and let them get by if they reach 10,000 right on the 30th. But also if you have a client that wants more disk space, saying, hey, I got this new album coming out and I need more space, if they pay you more space or whatever, you can go in and change a particular account. We're going to pass skeleton directory for just a second. Have an account that's doing something wrong, getting a lot of spam, or just doing something going on. This is where you can suspend them, and then their account will show up with the account suspended page. This is good not if they're bandwidth or disk space. That will happen. That happens automatically. This is good where you put a reason if you get somebody's hosting malware or something. I don't recommend right away deleting an account if somebody's hosting malware. You don't want to say, oh, it's horrible. You want to basically suspend them. Put a reason here, talk with them, and then you can unsuspend it. If it's suspended, we'll suspend them. So they'll see that page, and everything's basically suspended. I mean, it goes through and basically locks everything out, FTP, the whole bit. Then you go back in here, and you see that they're red. They're suspended. Click on them again. And again, as it says here, if you unsuspend an account that's bandwidth limited, it's not going to do it. You actually have to change the bandwidth limit, because what will happen is they'll check the bandwidth limit again for the month and then suspend them again. So it just becomes an endless loop. So this is manual suspend, unsuspend. Hopefully you'll never need this. Have an account that is no longer your client. Make sure that everything's moved and everything else is gone. Is you can go in here, click this, hit terminate, and everything's gone. It deletes the files, it deletes the users, it deletes everything. They do not exist. Be very careful right here. So basically select by domains or by users, and it will take care of everything in that account. If this user has like subdomains and stuff like that, and you click on the subdomain, or if you click on a park domain, it's for the account. It's not for that domain. So it's that whole account. It's terminate a user's account. So be very careful. It's not the same as deleting a subdomain or a park domain. If you have a lot, you can search by domain or by the user. Normally, just scroll through here. Down here is one that is if you're hosting on multiple servers, and typically you're not going to be on a typical HostGator type reseller, you might be deleting it from one server and moving it to another server, but it's using the same group of DNS servers. The DNS name and information that was on the account is the same. If you terminate it here, it also, without this checked, it also deletes it from the DNS, and that might not be what you want. So if you know that you need this, then you know to check it. If you don't know if you need to check this or not, you probably don't need to check this. Normally it's not checked. And you just hit terminate and they're terminated. I need this account for a little longer, so we're not going to terminate just yet. Upgrade, downgrade an account. Again, select the account, very similar interface. And you can go in and then change it to a different package from one package and then upgrade or downgrade them. So if a customer decides that they don't want that, the $99 package, they want the $49 package, you can just change it here. The problem is if their disk or quota for the month is higher than the new package, it will suspend them. If the disk and quota is lower than what they've used for the month and they're suspended, it usually unsuspends them, but not always. So you want to check just to make sure. So we don't need to upgrade or downgrade this. Well, just show you, just click and it goes through and says everything's being changed. It says the account changes and the different changes. Since we're not actually using this account, it's not going to change it. Notice it will not change the IP to a dedicated or to or from, even if that's in the package. It stays whatever was set. Web template editor, remember how I told you there's like 3 different ways to get to do the same thing? This is the same thing that we were just looking at with modify the suspend account page. Except that's right there. So that's all that is. Okay. Now, skeleton directory. Now I've showed you panels and such. There's a directory called, in this particular case, home, Koopster, cPanel, skeleton. And inside of that directory is nothing. And you'll see that these are your typical ones. You'll see a few different ones here than you'll see in your normal account. The 2 that we're going to basically be looking at is cPanel 3 Skell, and you'll see in this other one cPanel branding, which we'll get back to in a second. Inside of skeleton, you'll see 2 items. One is public FTP and one is public HTML. Inside of public HTML, you will see nothing. When a new account is set up, some of you have seen, like on HostGator, it'll put up a HostGator type page, nice and pretty, and it's labeled to them. If you go to a different client, like Liquid Web or whatever, you'll see typically a Liquid Web page, or you'll see the hosting company have a page. This is where it goes. This is what they call a skeleton directory. You would drag in and put in whatever you want to appear into this directory, and it could be anything that would normally go into the website. It can be HTML, PHP, graphics, whatever. You build this page, and I recommend it being not too fancy, and this will be until they actually put their content on, this is what's put into their website automatically. So they'll actually, when somebody goes to their domain, you can say, hey, your domain is running on XYZ hosting. And you can say, or your customer hasn't uploaded anything, please check back soon. So this is the default files that will go into their public HTML directory. I typically recommend putting 1, and if you want to do graphics or whatever, you link to the graphics elsewhere on your site, and just have this very basic. And this one I just uploaded was ultra basic. It says hi, new hosting company coming soon. You don't need to be spectacular, but just something real, a nice landing type page. And then I usually put comments in it at the beginning saying, hey, this is just a temporary page. You can delete it when you're ready to upload your own stuff. So that's what the skeleton is for. Now you'll notice there was also the one that was public FTP. Public FTP is FTP sites that anyone can access on a domain if it's enabled, and by default, I believe it's disabled. But if you wanted, you could put a file in here that says, this is what's coming, or some places have put their tools in here. If they're freeware, open source tools that they can distribute, they might put them here and then tell the client, hey, you can download them from your FTP site. I would leave this just empty. But what it's basically done is built up this skeleton, which is a default template for the new look for the site. So yeah, they have something there instead of seeing a total blank weird page. cPanel branding, this, I'm just going to point out, this is all where all the files exist for all of those, all of the branding type stuff. So you might go in here and copy one of these and then modify it for your particular needs, you know, changing the images and the layout and stuff like that. So that's where all of these files exist. This is not accessible by the user directly. It's accessible by cPanel. So that's pretty much the only two directories in there that are rather unique. These are general stuff. Some of them you see before, some of them you don't, like the skin stuff you don't need to get into. And then your normal public HTML is public HTML. So that's what that is. Hang on a second. So that's just basically telling you where your cPanel skeleton directory is. This is one part that most people miss when they're setting up their hosting account. And it's a nice touch to do. Multi-account functions, there's two things here. Modify, upgrade multiple accounts, and terminate multiple accounts. And they basically do what they say. In here, if you needed to modify, if you had to upgrade a few accounts, you can go in and check multiple accounts and change their locale or change their package or plan package to something else. And then it affects all the ones that are checked. You can, if you have a lot of them, you can search again by domain, by user, by the reseller owner, or which package they have, and then select the matching users, stuff like that. So that's basically it, and this modifies those things for all the accounts checked. Terminate multiple accounts. You might have a person that has, the user here will be, they might have counter hosting and non-counter hosting or whatever, and you want to terminate them all at once. Like you've just gotten rid of a client that had a few sites. You can go in and check off all of these. You need to type in whatever it says here, which usually says, I understand this will irrevocably remove all the accounts that have been checked. And they want you to type that in here. And then you click Destroy Selected Accounts. And so that will allow you to terminate multiple accounts. And this is the DNS zone, just like on the terminate page. But this will terminate multiple accounts at once. Be sure you do not terminate yourself. It's not pretty when it happens. And no, I will not demonstrate. So that's multiple functions accounts. Let's see. The themes. Is there any questions so far? Okay, well, I'll take that as...
I think we're looking good. We're all caught up with questions, so I think unless you have something else,
continue.
We've got 24 minutes. Probably should head over to billing unless I'm reading on your parade.
Just wrap up a couple things here. The DNS zone area, this is where you're going to make changes to the DNS. Do not play in here unless you know what you're doing. It's pretty much automatic. This is just all, if you're going to be adding like Google for Business, you would go in here and change certain things. Don't play in here unless you know what you're doing. But this is how you can make DNS changes for a particular site. You'll notice when people add a subdirectory, it'll come up in here. That's what these are all done. Usually you don't have to worry about them. But what's hiding in here is park a domain. So if you want to park a domain, let's say that you had dog hosting and you wanted it to be on top of counter hosting, you could say park. And this is just like if they were to park it in their cPanel. So it takes care of that. Let's see. Email is just basically some report. If you're having problems with email, this helps with support. Usually you're going to talk with the hosting company. And this is how to generate a SSL certificate. So this form is filled out, and when you get your SSL certificate, they should have information about how to do it in the cPanel. And they'll go into all the details here. It's not that hard. It just takes a bit of time. The last thing I want to point out here is client tutorials. HostGator offers client tutorials. Your client might be different. You can easily set them up and watch them. They are very basic, but there are tutorials if you'd like to offer them to your clients. And that's pretty much the whole WHM side of things. Somebody's asking, can you get one dedicated IP for each client? Yes, you can. You just need to ask your reseller hosting company, the company that you're buying your reseller hosting from, for it. Like Liquid Web charges $1 for everyone after the first set per month, and I don't know what HostGator is. I thought they were $1.99. But you need to find out from them, and then you can then set a dedicated IP to each client. Unless you're doing SSL, for the most part, usually isn't needed. Okay, so now on to billing. This is the fun part. You've now set up all this, and this is all done manually. And if you only have a couple clients, it's really easy to do. However, there are ways to make it more automated. HostGator offers HostGator offers 4 different ways to do automated billing. The one that I like to use the most out of the 4 is called WHMCS, and it's WHM for Web Host Manager and CS for Complete System. And this is the one I'm going to demonstrate in just a minute. I'm going to just tell you briefly about the others. One, WHM Autopilot that they also include. However, HostGator includes an older version of it, not the latest version 3. And I did not like the setup of it, and I felt that there was some issues because you actually had to open up your server a bit more, doing certain settings that I wasn't thrilled with. But they have a full set of instructions on how to install both of those. The next one is installed via Fantastico, and almost everybody that has Fantastico can use this. And this is called PHP Coin, and it's been around for a while. I found it really difficult to set up, and your mileage might vary, but and I don't see it upgrading often, and they're supposed to now be moving to a paid version, but currently it's free. It's in your Fantastico. I don't recommend installing it via Fantastico, though. And Nettenberg, these are the people that actually made Fantastico. They have a thing called Account Lab Plus that they used to sell, and now they offer it as like a freemium type thing. And you can install this again via Fantastico, which is the way they suggested, because they made Fantastico. So these last 2 are on pretty much all systems that have Fantastico. The first 2 are paid systems, like WHCMS, and requires a special license. On HostGator, there is a page to go to fill out, and you send that information in, and they send you a license key. So we've already actually licensed WHCMS, and I knew there was one tab I didn't put up here. There's always one, and that is where I actually installed it at. You can install MCS, or you can install this either in a subdomain, a subdirectory, or its own directory. I have a basic install done on a subdirectory because we're going to get rid of this after the webinar. This is all customizable and can be set depending on your particular needs. You can change the names. You can change the layout and such, and we'll show a little bit of this. Your clients have their own login. It does have things like knowledge bases and downloads, ability to do orders and domain checking and such. We're going to get into the admin side of things. If it lets me in today, it's been, oh well. Okay, if you notice I clicked it and it came back and it didn't do anything. Some of you might not have noticed that. There's some weird bug in this, and I don't know exactly how to overcome it, except for one way, but I'll show you. It didn't say anything was wrong, so everything was happy. If something's wrong, it'll come back and give you this log and failed. There's a problem, and it'll bump you out. But if you notice, I'm just getting welcome back over and over again. Check this remember me until I log out, and it will work. It has to do with session cookies, and I don't know any other way to overcome it at this point. So if you have that problem, that took me an hour to get help on that one. So you've now saved an hour. This is the admin board that when you come in. Once you set it up, it asks you a few questions about setting up the software. You download the software, unzip it, make a couple of minor edits, and then upload it to your server. You log in like I did, and you come to a page similar to this with the ability to set it up. There's this big dashboard of stuff telling you all sorts of things, but when you first start, it's pretty basic. The main one you would go into is the general settings. You're going to set up things like your address and where it's actually going to be, the domain and such. If you're U.S., set up different things. There's a whole lot of configuration done here, and most of it's very straightforward, and there is a manual and videos that go through all of this. Once it's set up, you can go in and customize certain things as much as you need to, but it's pretty, out of the box, it's pretty solid. The main things are going to be as if like you have their affiliate program running or not. I recommend until you actually make sure everything's working, you don't. And then you can have it linked to like Twitter and other things, but out of the box you just typically need the way it comes once you've asked done the first few questions it asks. The first page is a little different normally when you first log in, but it's mainly this stuff here. Then you need to set up products and services. This is going to be your overall hosting name is your group, and then there would be packages. These packages should normally match what is in the packages that you named inside of WHM. I just put WDC basic packaging, but it really should be matching closer to what's in there so that it's easier to follow. You can, when you set up a package, you say is it are they going to be a hosting account? Are they getting reseller? Because in some places you can actually resell reseller accounts. Liquid Web allows you to do this. By default, HostGator is not set up to do that. You can also set up like dedicated and VPS server if your particular hosting environment allows that, or other. You then can choose from the different groups. You would have already set up the groups. We've set up hosting, and then the package. And you can talk about what's in the package and use, disk, and then use some basic HTML to set it up. You have emails that you can choose from on which ones you want them to get. You can make them that they're required to tell you the domain up front. Some times you might want to just sell if they don't have a domain. This way, it's going to by default it's going to ask them if they want to register a domain or if they want to give you a domain that they already have. You can say, if you're really close, I mean, like I was talking about 20 of that one particular package, you might go in and limit it so that you only have X number of those that it'll sell, so that it will then tell you that, hey, you're running out of that package, so you can decide what you want to do. And then this is how it's listed in the list. If you need to charge tax, you should check with your particular locale. And you can also have hidden. So if you had like particular ones for your clients that you might not sell to other people, you can hide them from everybody else. Pricing is you can set up things like setup fees and prices, set them up for one time through 3 years. I was just like, no, that's not a third of a year. And as it says here, put -1 in anything, it'll blank that site out. So if you don't want like semi-annually or something, you might just put -1. Setup fees are optional. Some places charge setup. You might say, hey, if you're going to go 6 months or above, you don't have to pay a setup fee. That might get people to do more. This is it only happen a certain amount of times or recurring? So this is kind of, you know, if it's something that you're going to sell 3 years and then they're going to have to, you know, buy something or do something else, you would put a number here like 1 for a 3-year. If you're going to let it so that it renews over and over and over again, that's the number of days. I mean, number of times. So 0 is unlimited. The next one is you can have certain types of ones that will automatically terminate after a certain amount of time. This is how many days after it is actually activated. This is good, like it mentions, for free trials and time limited type things. This is different than having it cancel if they don't pay. That is done through a different section. And I forgot, I skipped this main one, how they pay, one time or recurring and so on. So you can set up different things. There's different modules for if you want to like charge for certain features. You can go in here and set up the, this is basically setting up the particular modules, and so it can be done. But the one thing that you should know about is down here is automatically set up this product, which means that as soon as they order, they're in. Or automatically set it as soon as you get a payment. Or you can set it up if you're going to manually accept a pending order. You can make it so they can send in a check or do not automatically set up. Typically, it's first payment if you're going to use something other than like PayPal. You can have custom fields. You can ask them for things. You can, we had groups set up, you could configure all the options. You can have upgrades, so like if they wanted more, if somebody wanted like a dedicated IP address, you can make it an optional upgrade. You might have it if you're set up with a domain register reseller. HostGator gives you one from Enom, for example. You can make it so that you can give them a free domain, or you can give them a free domain and it only continues if they renew it. And then what terms? So you might say, hey, they need to get semi-annually or above, and they get a free domain. So you'll see that on some. And then if we were actually set up with domains, this would be what TLDs like .com, .net. Maybe you got a great deal in .infos, so you're going to give out free .infos to everybody. Custom, this is the affiliate. This can be to customize affiliate for a particular thing, like you might give them more for a particular package. And then this is the links that you can use for buttons and stuff like that, which will link to this particular cart or such. There is a ability to order it from the front end, but if you want to have like a link on a really nicely page that that you did, you can have direct links. And that is setting up basically a product. Servers are set up. You have to add the server, and if you remember earlier, I talked about the key inside of WHM that you set up. This is the key where you would do like an Alt-A copy, and then you come in here and you would put in this. This is used instead of passwords for cPanel servers, and that would allow you now to work with cPanel. If you go over here and hit Generate New Key, this key that I just pasted is no longer good, so so this actually connection is broken. But this is how you would connect your servers. You put the main IP addresses, any additional IP addresses that they have assigned to that. You can put in your cost and put in what data center, because you can have servers from different hosting providers, and then you assign them depending on what's going on, or you could have multiple servers at HostGator, for example. They default maximum 200 accounts. Like I was talking about like 20 earlier, you can do that. And if you have an external server status page, you can link to that so people could see what the status is of their server. And if you just want to have a server hanging out but not actually available, that goes there. In here you put the name servers and IP addresses for your name servers that were provided by your web hosting company, up to 5. And then these are automatically assigned to to the account, and when it sends the account email, it puts those into their welcome email. So that's most of the stuff is basically setting this up. There are the ability to go in and change the email templates, so you can have a different look or make them more personalized. It has some things like enter your client name and all that, but you can go in and edit all this. You can assign additional administrators over the main one, and so they have access to this admin area, but you also have other kinds of users to do different things. And what roles that they get, like you have a person that's mainly a salesperson or mainly a support person, and do those particular one. And then we were talking about like add-ons. There might be different things that you want to have add-on. They have some that they can activate. You can support different currencies if that's a particular thing, like by default it's USD. Payment gateways, it does support a whole bunch of payment gateways from A to W, and including basic PayPal somewhere. It's not completely in. Oh, I think I already have PayPal, so it's not completely in alphabetical order. Just to warn you. And then you would set this up. Once it's set up, then they would have the ability to use any of the payment gateways that you've set up, and use depending on the features of that payment gateway, it might do automatic billing, it might require manual billing. And you can set up promotions and discounts and things like that. So of percentages off, fixed amount, a free setup, say what ones it applies to or what does it require, what kind of things they need. Maybe you have a free domain, stuff like that. So these are where coupons are going. That's all done. That's the whole setup. That's probably the main thing. There is a help documentation. There are utilities to do different things, and including looking up other places, getting some additional support, getting status of a database, seeing some of the logs. Once you actually have clients and such, you'll see great graphs and other information here. There's no real clients, so you're not going to see very much, but it will give you overall. And there's a lot of things that it can do. You do have to set up some cron jobs through your particular setup to have it do automatically, but it will automatically bill and rebill and do all of that types of things if you're going to have external clients and billing. If you're just going to have direct clients that you're billing and such, this is kind of overkill unless you need them to go in and want to change things and look at things. But this is what a lot of the smaller hosting companies use for their front ends. So that's it. I like WHMCS because it has been evolving. They've been around for a long time, and it is fairly easy to set up. The client area, I have no idea what just happened. That's nice. The client area is pretty clean. And it's not going to log into the client because they're not really, but this is all the information you can get on a client, but they actually have their own look and access, and you can shut off any of these and customize this as needed. Okay, any questions? We've got one question about something else. Is there any questions regarding the reseller or the billing aspect?
If nobody has a question, I have one for you.
Okay, for some reason I just lost all my volume. So let me figure out what's going on.
Okay, I can hear you just fine on this end.
Yeah, I just can't hear you really well. Okay, what's your question?
The one thing that you skipped over was you talked about it, but you didn't show it physically, was the process of getting the WHMCS initially. You talked about setting up a subdomain and about requesting it, but where is just the area to go to initially get that license key?
To get the license key from HostGator, they will provide you a URL when you sign up for your account. And I'm looking for it. I don't know if it's something that I can show on the screen.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is after you've gotten a reseller account, it's information that HostGator or whatever the reseller was sent out with the welcome email to basically your new reseller package?
Right. You have to request WHM or WHAP Autopilot from HostGator. They turn around. In one case, HostGator gives you a link that gives you access to the gives you access to the WHMCS site, the Complete Solutions site, and you actually order it through that link and set up an account here. You're actually a customer of WHMCS. You then download it along with the license, and when you set it up, there's a place to put the license in. You upload it to your directory or subdirectory, and it's here's the subdirectory I did. So it's a set of files that are just uploaded. You make a couple minor changes and run it, and then it asks you for the license information, and then it asks you for the general settings page.
Okay, and I know you said it's a premium product, and I know that, but it is included in as part of the package through HostGator, correct?
Yes, it is a premium product normally. HostGator basically has the I'm not sure which one of these, the two you get. I'm not sure if you get no branding or not. I'm not sure if you can turn off the branding that's here. I'm not sure if through the HostGator that's by default or not. But you get a monthly, basically the monthly version. So instead of paying $15.95 or $18.95 a month, you get, as long as you're with HostGator, you get to use it for free. And it is the full pro version. You actually get an account at WHMCS. You have access to the forums and support there. HostGator will provide some support as well.
Cool.
So, but yeah, you're basically for the price that you're paying for hosting at HostGator, you know, most of that would be eaten up just by this compared to somewhere else.
All right. Anybody have any other questions regarding reseller hosting and or the billing aspect that Jerry just showed? We do have one outstanding question, but it's a bit off topic.
Okay. There is one other thing that I did talk about briefly, but if you were going to be reselling domains in the WHMCS, you need some sort of domain reseller account. Namecheap offers one that works with it, and Enom works with it. HostGator's tied a little bit more to Enom, but you can work with either one. But HostGator does give you an Enom reseller account as part of your reseller. It works a similar way. You have to sign up through the HostGator link and get the information to enter into WHMCS. And then you can actually sell domains directly to your customer. You don't have to send them off to GoDaddy or Namecheap. So, all right, any other questions?
I'm not seeing any, my friend.
I'm not seeing any yet either. Well, thank you very much for attending. Do you want me to answer that other question in there?
Yeah. If you feel comfortable hitting that up.
All right. So if a client wants a particular domain name that's owned by someone else, is there the best way to go about getting it? And you know the difference between GoDaddy's by domain name service and the backordering service apart from the different pricing? I'm a little bit familiar with the GoDaddy things. There are different companies that do auctions and back ordering and such. The best way is there is no best way. It really depends on the domain. I typically have tried the direct approach for most of them, depending on what I felt the customer wants. If you really want a domain name, the direct approach is the best way. The problem is it might end up costing you a fortune. Where the buy a domain name, there's a couple different ways. One is buying a domain name that's up for sale through like GoDaddy in one of their directories, where you see counter hosting and you love it and you want to buy it and it's up for sale. You go in there and pay for it, or there might even be like an auction going for it. But it's something that's going to be sold. Back ordering means that you want that domain, so you're paying GoDaddy to hold a spot there, and as soon as the domain is released from what they call the redemption period, they will try to order it for you. There's no guarantees, but it will try to order it for you the instant it gets released. And when I've done those, it's best to do it with the company that owns the registration to begin with, because they're the ones that know exactly when it's going to be released. But I haven't found a science that's going to work best. If you want a domain name really cheap, though, and you walk up to somebody and say, hey, you want that domain name, you've now said there's interest, and the domain names go up. And personally, for my domain names, don't come by and ask to buy them for $10. I have more invested in it if I have a domain name. But so it really depends on what you're looking for. Backorder is, if you really want a domain name, I would at least put it on backorder, even if you're going to buy it somewhere else, so just in case it ever slips through. Kevin, do you have an opinion on this?
Yeah, although I don't have extensive experience. I have picked up on behalf of myself a couple of domain names that I really wanted that were already owned by somebody else, and I've done precisely what Jerry has talked about. I have approached individual sellers, which of course it typically, and Jerry's definitely right. Anytime you tip your hand to allow someone to know that obviously you have interest, specific interest in something, obviously the price is going to go up because that's just human nature. But if you look at a domain, and you can look at a domain and you find out that, hey, there's nothing there. There's a website doesn't exist. You might go look at I forget the URL. I don't know if it's archive.org. There's the ability to use the
Wayback Machine.
The Wayback Machine to see if a website has basically been there in the past. And if you look at it now and you find out that there's nothing there, and if you look at it and you find out that the Wayback Machine says basically that there's nothing been there in a long, long time, then the likelihood that they really care all that much about it, personally, is probably not that strong. And so I kind of look at both of those before I make an educated guess as to what I think I might have to pay. In addition to that, though, something that Jerry said I totally agree with, and that is unless it is already, basically been dropped and it's available just in a raw auction, I would always go back to the original registrar, and you can typically find that by just doing a domain whois search, finding out who's the actual registrar of the domain name, and then contacting them to see if you can basically get on their back order list, so that basically when that domain truthfully drops, you'll basically be first in line. I did pick up one particular domain that way. I haven't put anything on it yet, but I had been after the domain name in the .com with my own name without a hyphen for a long time, just kevincoop.com, and it was registered, and it actually had a site on it for a while, and then it went through the dropping period, and I found out that, fortunately for me, it had been registered through GoDaddy. So I went and paid the money to basically use their back order service to get that domain name, if at all possible, as soon as it dropped, and I successfully got it. So it can work, but like Jerry said, there's no, at least in my experience, there's no, exact hows and whys. Jerry's going to show you something here.
This is who I use. It's Domain Tools. I actually have a shortcut that I usually use, but it's not on this particular one. And you can get a lot of information by going here. You can see, who the contacts are. Sometimes these are the good person to talk to. Sometimes they're not. You can see when it was created and when it expires. You can see Google actually, at some point bought out to 2020. And like when it was updated. You can see these kind of things, what's going on, but also how many registrars and different things that have happened with the site. So there's some information you can go and look about these ones. You can see who actually is the registrar, that kind of stuff, and get an idea about it. So there are some tools out there that will give you some feedback about about the look. This one will give you these screens so you can see what happened. So yeah, you can do some research and see if it's not being used. If I see something that's not being used at all, I back order it, and then typically get it that way. If it's something I really want, I go to some of the, this one was like Snap. There's a few different ones by different major registrars, by GoDaddy and by Cedo and by Network Solutions, and I back order on all of those if it's something I really need. I had one for a major client that we tried to go direct, and the guy said, I won't sell it. And we offered him all sorts of things. He ended up letting it lapse when he realized that he was in the wrong, but he was just hoping he would just get out of it. So I kind of look at it, look at it here. I won't typically ask directly because you tip the hand. So, but yeah, there's different tools, but there is no one that works the best. So it's up to what works for you. But yeah, if something is going to expire soon, it's going to go into redemption status, which is about 75 days of it sitting there. Most registrars will let you renew within about 8 days at the same price, and then it's like an $80 fee to renew. And most people aren't doing anything if it goes to redemption. It's typically going to pop off the redemption at some point, but there's no specific date, so you don't really know when that's going to happen. So I don't think it's worth, if it's something that you really want, just back order it. But then again, you're not guaranteed you're going to get it. Somebody asked what was a locked meant on a registration. There's registrar statuses here, and that basically, some of them are locked or different things. There's some different wording. It basically typically means that you can't move it from one domain registrar to the other. And you should basically lock down your domains once you've got them in your account. That way somebody can't put in a request to move them to a different domain registrar, effectively stealing your domain. Well, I think we got all the questions done.
Yep. We are good. I thank you very much. It was awesome. I learned a bunch of new things myself, which I suspected that I would. And got a number of good comments throughout the thing. One of them included the fact that they were dazzled by you. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate the good comments, appreciate the good questions, and most of all, I appreciate your attendance.
Cool. So with that, we'll end this recording. We did put it in record mode. It is recording. We'll stop this recording. I should have the WordPress security edited and such that Jerry and I will either get it in later today or by tomorrow at the latest, and I'll try to get this one in more quickly than usual as well. And then only 2 pieces of housekeeping as far as this course is concerned, looking at my notes. We have one more webinar this month on the 23rd. It's a bonus webinar that Jerry and I are going to be basically co-hosting in basically regards to some of the questions that have come in throughout the course. Basically answer some questions and maybe get into some things that we haven't gotten into thus far. Probably won't be It's probably going to be one of those webinars that's a little bit all over the map. You know, it's a little hodgepodge of this or that, other thing, some pro tips that we've tripped across in our own businesses. And then last webinar scheduled for Friday, June 1st, where basically it's just going to be a web dev course member Q&A session where for an hour you can just basically shoot from the hip, and we'll do our best to give you an intelligent and experienced answer. So with that,
We're going to talk about the form, the Gravity form.
Oh yeah, you take over.
For those that aren't able to actually make it to the Q&A session, we're going to actually have a way for you to ask questions before it happens. And after the bonus webinar ends on the 23rd, my birthday, we're going to put up a form on the site where you can ask Q&A questions, and we will be going through the list of questions that will be submitted through that form, as well as questions that have been asked throughout the webinar series. So check for that after the 23rd.
Cool. All right. I think that's about it. All right. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great day. Take care. We'll talk to you next time.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.